When you're looking at a piece of equipment that's supposed to move heavy loads day after day, the first question that pops into most people's heads is, will this actually make my job easier, or am I just spending money on something that will sit idle in a corner? That hesitation is completely understandable, especially when you're comparing a $2,000 plus gantry crane to a cheaper, portable hoist that might not have the same stability. I'm going to walk through exactly how the Vestil FHS 610 steel fixed gantry crane behaves in a real workshop, what you'll actually gain for the price tag, and who should seriously consider adding it to their shop floor. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the basics of the category. Fixed gantry cranes are essentially a pair of upright columns connected by a horizontal beam, with a hoist mounted on the beam. They're designed to stay in one place, giving you a permanent lift point that you can roll around on casters. The alternative is a mobile overhead crane, which uses a telescoping mast and can be positioned anywhere, but those systems often require more maintenance, higher initial cost, and a larger footprint. In many small to medium shops, a fixed gantry hits the sweet spot. It's sturdy enough for repeated 6,000-pound lifts, yet still mobile enough to be repositioned when you need a different workflow. The Vestil unit is built from welded steel, which is the standard you'd expect for a crane of this capacity. What matters in practice is how that steel feels when you're loading and unloading. In the shop I visited, the columns didn't flex even when the operators were pulling full-rated loads of steel plates. The beam stayed level, and the trolley moved smoothly along the 10-foot span. That constant stability is a direct result of the fixed-height design. There's no adjusting the column height each time you lift, so you avoid the little wobble you sometimes get with adjustable height gantries. If your workflow involves repetitive lifts at the same height, think assembling engine blocks, moving large pallets of raw material, or positioning workpieces for CNC machining, that steadiness translates into less time spent double-checking the crane's position. Now, the casters. Vestil includes 4 swivel phenolic casters with 4-way position locks. Phenolic wheels are a solid choice for industrial environments because they resist oil, chemicals, and heat better than standard nylon or rubber. In a real-world setting, those wheels rolled over concrete, slightly oily shop floors, and even a few patches of dust without developing flat spots. The 4-way lock is a nice safety net. You can lock each wheel independently, which means you can secure the crane on uneven floors or when you're using it near a loading dock where the floor might have a slight slope. The downside is that the locks require a bit of force to engage and release, so if you have to move the crane many times a day, the extra effort could add up. For a shop that only repositions the gantry once or twice a week, it's a negligible inconvenience. For a high-turnover environment, you might want to look for a model with lighter touch brakes. One hidden trade-off that isn't obvious from the spec sheet is the space the crane occupies when you lock the wheels. Because the columns are fixed at a 10-foot span, you need a clear aisle at least that wide plus a little extra for the casters to turn. In cramped bays, that can become a bottleneck, especially if you're trying to move long stock pieces through the same space. Some users solve this by installing the gantry in a dedicated aisle and using a secondary, smaller trolley for tighter spots, but that does mean you're committing a portion of your floor plan to the crane permanently. From a compliance standpoint, the crane meets OSHA 29 CFR 1910.179, ASME 30.17, and ANSYS 535.4. That's not just a box-checking exercise, it means the design has been reviewed for safety factors, load testing, and proper labeling. If your shop is subject to regular safety audits, having that documentation can save you a lot of paperwork and potential downtime. However, compliance also implies that you need to follow the recommended inspection schedule. The manufacturer suggests a visual check of the welds, bolts, and casters every 6 months, and a more thorough inspection annually. If you're not set up to perform those checks, you might end up with a crane that technically meets standards but isn't maintained to keep it there. So, who should walk away with this gantry, and who should look elsewhere? If you're a small to medium manufacturing operation that routinely lifts loads in the 2,000 to 6,000 pound range, and you have a relatively open floor area where a fixed-height crane can stay put, this Vestil model is a solid match. It shines for repetitive, heavy-duty lifts where you want the peace of mind that comes from a welded steel frame that won't wobble. It's also a good fit for educational institutions or training facilities that need a dependable piece of equipment for teaching basic material handling without the complexity of an overhead system. On the other hand,